Hey, what's up guys, it's Steph. Okay, and today we are here to talk about 4 of the books from this last decade that I feel like everyone should read at least once or try to start reading or look at because I really loved them. They were really good. Like, some of them are really out there, some of them aren't really as out there as other books that I mentioned. And they're just 4 books that I found really impactful, and then one that I just like, so good. But like, these are 4 books I found really impactful that I can think of the most. Because this 2010s, like, this was such a weird decade. Because for half of it, I was in school. I graduated high school in 2015. And then going into 2019, that's like, half I was in school, half I'm out of school. When I was in school, I didn't really read as much because I lacked that motivation because school is draining. And then I get out of school, I start doing booktube, and I start discovering all these beautiful stories. And that's why my stack is kind of a lot that came out in 2019 and then some from earlier in the decade. But these are just 4 stories that came out between 2010 and our quoting point in 2019 that I feel everyone should take a look at. And I'm sorry if it's kind of repeaty of my favorites of 2019 because a few of them are from 2019. So, let's get into that. Let's talk about the one that is not from 2019. It was one of my first booktube loves. Like, I'm very happy that I stumbled across a video where someone briefly mentioned it and didn't even go that much into detail. It was just a brief kind of, here's this book, moving on. I think that it was like a TBR or something. And I thought it sounded interesting, and I got it, and it was one of my absolute favorite books of the year. I think I read it in 2017 or 18, maybe 16 when it came out, because it came out in 2016. And that is Symptoms of Being Human by Jeff Garvin. This is about... Why did I do that? This is about Riley, who is a gender-fluid teen. They start an anonymous blog on the advice of their therapist, and it ends up kind of blowing up, and people come here for advice to feel kind of seen because they relate to what Riley is putting out, just these words that Riley is sharing for everyone. But things get complicated because Riley's father is a political figure, and at the beginning of the book, Riley is moving to a new school, and people there aren't that great, as everywhere. Oh boy, thanks, Americans. School system. I don't know where I was going with that. It is a really good story. I really love this. And this is a debut novel from Jeff Garvin. I don't know if he's put out any books since, but I found that I loved the story reading. This was the first book I ever read that featured a gender-fluid main character. I love this because it remains ambiguous of Riley's born gender, which, who cares? Riley is Riley, and it's just a fantastic story. There are fantastic friendships in this book, and it is one that I always recommend if someone's like, I'm looking for a new book. It's like Symptoms of Being Human. It is such a fantastic read, and I love it so very much. I just haven't read very many stories where we have a gender-fluid main character that doesn't, like, specify to any pronouns. Like, they're just them. That's who they are. They are Riley. They are so-and-so. They are so-and-so. I love that about this book, and it was, like I said, it was one of my first, like, booktube reads, and it's still one of my favorites that I hold very close to my heart. Hopefully I described that decently. Might as well go in order of when I read these books, because the next book up on my list is Clare Me In by Natasha Diaz. This is a 2019 release. Our main character has never really thought about her biracial roots, being half Jewish, white, and half black. It never really seemed like a big of an issue until her parents separated. She went to go live with her mother's family in Harlem for most of the time, and her family on that side, they didn't really see her as black enough. They didn't see her as really having to deal with the struggles that they deal with because she was white passing. So they kind of didn't like her as much. On her father's side, she was never raised to be Jewish. She was always told she would never have to be raised to be Jewish. But when the divorce came, her father decided, bat mitzvah for you, we're doing all the things. I think it also deals with the divorced parent aspect very well between the other fantastic messages in this book. Like, I really related, and it stuck with me, the divorced parents' representation in this book, because my parents have been divorced since I was, like, 1. It's affected me my whole life, and it messes with you, man, and I can't even imagine, like, living with a family so long and then suddenly having them split up at, like, 15 or 16. That has to be arguably even harder than having the divorce when young, because young, all I've known is back and forth. Like, I can't even imagine having something stable and then suddenly having it thrown everywhere and suddenly you're back and forth and back and forth. You're in between 2 houses. Like, it's so much harder, I feel, as an adult, because you have to, well, not as an adult, but as a young adult, you're having to cope with it in that stage of your life instead of growing up just having it be all you've known. Like, I really love that about this book. This book, like, it's words. I think another fantastic thing about this book is that it is own voices. The author is of mixed heritage. She did live through divorce like this, and she went through a similar story to what she wrote in this book, from what I've read from the author's note, and that makes me love the story even more. I really think more people should check this out, and I would highly recommend it. I think it is a fantastic book. Please check it out. You know, I went out of order because I think I read this book before that book, but who cares at this point? Next, we're going to talk about Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I hope that's how I pronounce their name. This is a big booktube story. Everyone went absolutely ham for this book, and for good reason, as I always say. It is such a good story. It is just a heartwarming, queer story about the son of the President of the United States and the Prince of Wales. It is quality content, and my god, I cannot wait for this author's next book, which features a lesbian couple, one chick from the 70s, one from modern day, and somehow, like, timelines cross, and they have to figure out how to get one back or something. It sounds amazing. Go check out the author's Twitter if you want to know more. They wrote the thing, and I am so excited. Anywho, like I said, this is just a little romance between the President of the Son of the United States and the Prince of Wales. It starts out with this kind of, like, not hate to love, it's more of like an irritation to friendship to love, and it's beautiful. It's so freaking hilarious throughout. You're busting up throughout the book. It's written with such humor, and then there's such heart at moments. And it's just such a quality story. If you like, it'll fill your little queer heart to its fullest, and it makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. It's such a good read. History, huh? And finally, one of my more recent from this pile and favorites of the year, as with like most of this little stack that I've shown you, is Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. This one I got through Book of the Month. It came in as an early release through Book of the Month YA, and it is utterly fantastic. This is about a teen. She has moved to a new school. She is meeting new people. She is in this new theater program. She is directing the play. Like, she is the director, and it's awesome. There are so many theater references. And she's starting to catch feels for this guy, and she's also HIV positive. Our main character was born with HIV. She was adopted out by two loving fathers. And side note, but there's so many queer characters like throughout the book. It's so good. She moves to a new school because her old school outed her as being HIV positive, and it did not go well. And now at this new school, someone knows her secret and is threatening her to blackmail her, because if she doesn't like leave this guy that she's catching feels for alone, this person is going to oust her to the whole school. It's such a good story. There are such good characters in here. I love the family dynamic. I love the friendships. I love, like, there's queerness all around. It's just such a good story, and I love it so much. It's short, but it packs so much heart. It's so good. And if you're a theater nerd, there are so many theater references. Lin-Manuel Miranda is mentioned at least 6 times in this book. They even talk about the Cats movie at one point. It is just beautiful, and I cannot wait for Cameron Garrett's next book. This is a debut book. I don't know. I think I saw on Twitter that this author was signed to another book deal or another like book or two. I don't know, but I cannot wait for more of this author's work because I love how these characters were written. I love that they felt real, and like it's also such a sex positive book, which you don't really see in YA. YA isn't really, from what I've read, isn't that sex positive. It's more like we just kind of like meld into it. These people are actually like talking about it and talking about safe sex and how to like prevent these STDs from going around and prevent HIV from spreading. It's such a good story, and it packs so much heart, and I feel like this is definitely one that more people should read and check out and just love in 2020. We are entering the roaring 20s. Now is the time. Please read this book and all the other ones I mentioned and more. I couldn't think of all the books that I wanted to talk about, but these are just 4 that immediately at the top of my head is like, this is what I want to talk about. These ones really impacted my 2019, and then this one, yeah, really impacts my reading journey on BookTube as a whole. Back when I first read it, when I was first starting BookTube and just kind of buying books to buy them. This one, I am so glad that I stumbled across in that random TBR video, because if I hadn't, I would have lost out on one of my all-time favorite stories. And yeah, there you go. That is my little tiny video of books that I think people should read. I think they were very impactful from the 2010s, from this decade. like favorite books of the decade. I don't know what I'm gonna call this video because I definitely had more favorite books throughout the decade, but these are the ones that, thinking about which ones impacted me the most this decade, it was probably these. Maybe a couple other ones, but like off the top of my head, these were like the very first ones I had and had on hand. It's just, they're good stuff. I really recommend these books. Like, I can't recommend them enough that I love them so much. We have diverse characters, we have diverse stories, and it's just so good, guys. I highly recommend all these books if you want to check them out. Anywho, that's all I've got for you guys today. I will let the end card take it from here, and I'll see you later.